Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga, has started out by firstly pointing out who is one that is relatively ready to actually sit down and perform this meditation. And it started out by saying that one is able to lift oneself by oneself. This much they understand, that no one's here to save me, but I am here to save myself alone. So this means there's a certain responsibility that a meditator has in their life, and that is, I am responsible for my reactions, for whether people trigger me, how much I get triggered, for how long I allow myself to be triggered. It is most of it is in my power alone, because I can always change my attitude in reference to different things that throw me off in life. And thus, by the yogi recognizing that I need to protect my mind so that the world doesn't constantly make it all, like a wind, blowing the flame. What I need to do is I need to plug all of these holes up in my mind through the process that we've seen yesterday. And then when it introduced who is capable of meditating, then it went through the process of meditation. And it started out, what we've been taught so far, is by starting with a japa. Because before we get into a meditation, whose purpose is to contemplate and bring Ishvara into your life, and how is Ishvara related into your life, that's the purpose of meditation. Before actually thinking about that with closed eyes, firstly, I settle down my mind using japa. And we've been taught a japa is a repetition, a mantra, and rather than just mindlessly chanting the mantra, you're given a chance to think about what each of those syllables mean. Thereby, it becomes something that's very personal to you. So when you say something like Om Tat Sat, immediately, because you've said it so many times and you thought about it so many times, it brings the teaching to you instantly in one shot like that. And thereby, you're able to bring your mind to that composure, which is now ready after 5 or so minutes of japa, ready to stop japa. That means the whole meditation is not about japa, but it's just to calm down the mind. Then one stops the japa, and the next stage is one begins to relate Ishvara into their life, brings the Ishvara's orders. How is it that my life is totally dependent upon the presence of intelligence? In what way does this intelligence show up in my life? Well, it shows up in many ways. Like when I am, to that which I am aligning for my own good, which we call dharma, that dharma is nothing but intelligence, Ishvara. Therefore, by aligning to dharma, I am aligning myself to Ishvara. And this is the understanding that I am never aligning to anything else but Ishvara. And I need dharma, I need ethics, a clean mind, healthy thinking. I need discipline. I need some goal, some bigger vision. I need all of this for my own sake. And thereby, the person starts to right now say, how is also this destructive power of Ishvara, which which we take for sometimes fearful, it's a fearful power. And you convert that and say, actually, this power of destruction, of change, has always been helping me, and it's because of which I am here right now. Because it's removed all of that stuff that is no longer required, and it's opened doors for new opportunities that I can open and walk through. And we said a beautiful mantra, Om Trayambakai Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyamamrta At. And this whole prayer is to help you invoke Ishvara as that one who removes obstacles from your life.
I cannot repeat that so quick, what you say now. Where is it coming from?
Maha Mrityunjaya mantra. Maha Mrityun. So great death mantra. In other words, great removing mantra. Yeah, Mrityu is death or change. Okay, so you don't have to chant it now in Sanskrit, by the way, but right, the culture is in Sanskrit, so you can use it in your local language. So if it were to be in English, then you would say, "Oh Lord, I invoke you as that one who is blessing me by removing all of those things that I wish not in my life. And what do I want from you? I want liberation. I want to be relieved from bondage of those things like pumpkins and cucumbers which are holding on to me, which are no longer serving me, which are heavy and are pulling me down and not letting me express myself as I wish to be in this life. Therefore, help me remove all of these things hanging on me that have been since beginningless amount of time so that I can just live a happy life as I wish to be, and I can bring you your knowledge into my life, and I can understand you fully as you truly are rather than as I wish you to be." So this means you're not memorizing this, you're just spontaneously, it's coming out of you. This is called relating with Ishvara. It doesn't have to be in Sanskrit, it's just ordinary local language. And therefore you're invoking this presence to help you, right, pull these weeds out that are just holding you down as an individual. Therefore, this is called relating with Ishvara. And then the question came back onto the original question, and that is, what kind of a yogi is it that has, what was the benefit of all of this meditation? And then we said in verse 23 and 25, we said all of these have been, right, brought into one's life, into the yogi's life. And we went through verse 24 and 25, some really interesting discoveries here, and things like discerning power, right? What is it that I can truly change and not change? Think about this. We spend most of our life on those things that we cannot change. So I have to be very clear, what can I actually change? If I don't know, then it turns into a complaint. Oh, the world is like this, the environment's like this, these people are holding me down, they're pulling me down, I can't, the employer is like this, the employees are like that. Well, the question is, that's true, that's a fact. But what about your experience can you change? There has to be an answer to that. It's a fact. No matter what you're going through, who you're with, there has to be an answer to the question, what little can I change? If I cannot find the answer, it is my duty to find the answer. This is a fact, no matter what position you're in. What little can I change here? There always is a yes to one thing or the other. If I cannot get myself to stop watching YouTube for 2 hours, then at least I can say yes to less than 5 minutes, 5 minutes less. To that I can say yes to. If I can't say yes to 5 minutes, I can say yes to 1 minute. If I don't want to exercise for 20 minutes, I can say yes to one single push-up, one single half of a push-up, okay? There's always something you can do, okay? I can always put a new picture on the wall that makes me think about different thoughts. Really, this is a big thing, to know what little can I do in my environment. When someone hurts you, what little can I do in this moment? When someone just triggers you, what little can I do in this moment? Discover that. That is the work that Vedanta wants to show us. restoring your trust in Ishvara. We said that Ishvara is the only entity which never makes any mistakes. And how is that so? It never brings you random circumstances in life. Everything you're experiencing is coming for a reason. There is a cause-effect relationship. In that, I can have trust. That is Ishvara, by the way. There was a story given once of what happens when you don't have knowledge of Ishvara and how the mind can go into a tangent. It's not my story, but it's my teacher's story. She knows a friend who, there was a daughter, and her father sold his property and gave it to the daughter. And she thought it's a lovely thing to have. You know, this was in India, a property, I have a property. But then the brother came over and says, you know, this is no value, just sell this. It's just going to depreciate over time. Just sell it, it's nothing. You're going to get more money. And she was very apprehensive. She says, no, I don't want to sell this. You know, this is our property, our land. We've lived here. And brother convinced her to sell the property and make money of that. And she, you know, apprehensive, but she gave in. And now the money came to her, and he said to her, well, you know, I want 50% because I convinced you, you know, it was my calling, it was my suggestion, so I want 50%. And again, she was apprehensive, like, no, you know, this was specifically for me, Dad gave this to me, Dad gave you other things. And again, he convinced her, you know, pushed. And so she apprehensively, you know, gave him 50%. And what happened? Well, he next week got robbed. And, you know, all of the jewelry got taken from his house. And what did he do? He said, wow, it's, you know, these thieves, you know, there's so many thieves around here, and the country is going downhill, and, you know, we can't trust anyone in the community. So immediately the mind goes onto external factors. But there is a cause-effect relationship. If I do one thing and I treat someone unfairly and I push them and I push them and I push them, Ishvara has a very smart way of returning you some interesting results. And if we're not, you know, diligent, if we're not careful, then we just offload it. It's the world is like this. But Ishvara never makes a mistake. There is a reason why things happen the way that they do happen. Okay? In this much, I can have not some, but all the trust that however your life is right now, there is a reason for your life being right now. A reason. Therefore, there's no need to blame oneself. Why am I going through this? And why is my life like this? No. It is a perfect reflection of everything that took place in the past. Okay? And then we have things like taking responsibility for your actions. Again, this is about knowing what I can change and not change. Total responsibility for how I feel, how I interpret situations, and even if I interpret them in the best intentions possible, there is still a chance of misinterpretation or error or conflict. And that is going to be a feedback system, which I have to again do some damage repair. And this is just how life is for all of us. There is no romantic notion of getting it right every single time. No matter how many books you read, it's just not possible. Because it may be the right decision today, but tomorrow we've discovered something new, and that new has canceled out my best intentions of today. Because you're always getting new information. Now the question in verse 27, it asks, now when I have brought all of these tools into my life and I live them authentically, with dedication, then how will it help me in my life? What is the outcome of all of this? And this will be in verse 27. Prashantam manasam hyenam yoginam sukham uttamam upaiti shanta rajasam brahma bhutam akaumasham. So when I bring Ishvara into my life and I'm living to the best of my ability and I'm being discerning, and bringing dharma into your life, constantly realigning your actions to what is the right thing to do, using feedback of the world to help grow and evolve as a human being, then what happens? Prashanta manasam. In other words, cheerfulness of the mind. This is why I didn't put cheerfulness yesterday, because cheerfulness is a product of all of this. Therefore, the person has less pratibhasika and more in touch with vyavaharika. Less living in my bubbles, how things are, what to do, what not to do, how things should be, how things shouldn't be, how my life should be like this. Less of that, more with what is right now. And that is what brings you cheerfulness. We often park ourselves in some bubble and we think cheerfulness is in there, but the bubble itself is the very thing that is denying my cheerfulness. So everything until then was, building up the I sense, building up the pratibhasika, until it pops and then you recognize, let's do what is to be done. In other words, everything subserves my goal for moksha. So what will all of this give me? It will give me a mind that is able to understand the reality. And what is the purpose of life? Because of which I am doing all of this. Why am I doing all of this? Because according to the Vedas, the purpose of life is moksha. So every challenge becomes subservient to moksha. Every challenge that you get in your life helps you look at where is my response coming from what place is my response coming from. Is it coming from some agenda, from some hatred, from some bitterness, from some funny idea? Where is this coming from? And you have a chance to reframe it. You have a chance to change it, which is more aligned with keeping with what is going on. This person could be under the influence of limited information, for example. So for example, right, we go to a job, and in the job, how do you make your job subservient to moksha? How is my job, like money, how is that subservient to moksha? Example. How is that helping you, right, attain moksha? You can always do things better. You can always treat people better. You can always look at, who kind of triggers you, and you can always, understand that my job, if I have conflicts in my job, then that conflict spills over into real life. Therefore, it's in it for me to do things better, to preserve a relative harmony at work, because that will flow into home when it comes to study time. Therefore, it's almost like you have no choice but to preserve a general, right, well-being throughout your transactions. So it's no longer job is one thing, it's just employees, and I'm going to do my studies at home. Now, you see, it carries over. So there's a connection. Yeah. And you're happy not only to contribute, but also your attitude changes in reference to those who you may not find working with is a pleasant thing. Right? I know how it is in real life. It's like they're there and they're so different than you, and there's just not one thing that you're compatible with. So this means, what one little thing can I change in my attitude about this person? Because you can't change them. Try. It's going to try more conflict. But what one little thing can I change? And it always comes back to you. There are a manifestation of Ishvara. I may not be compatible with that manifestation, but I can set some boundaries because I don't want to be, right, affected too much by them. So I can, right, bring certain, like, this is too much now. I choose to leave. This is too much. I choose to leave. Assertively. And then verse 29, what is the... Having brought this into one's life and being able to think about the nature of reality, what is the outcome of all of this? Verse 29. Sarva bhutas tamatmanam sarva bhutani chatmani ikshate yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadarshanaha. understanding that Atma is in all beings. In other words, what does this mean? Atma is in all beings. Consciousness is in all beings. Okay? Consciousness is in all beings. In other words, find me one place where consciousness is not. Sarva bhutani cha atmani, and all beings are in Atma. So Atma is in all beings, and all beings are in Atma. What does this mean? All beings are in Atma. Like space, as though space. Everything is accommodated by one presence. Now, there's a possibility to say if everything is in Atma, then that spoils Atma, right? So if someone that's a saint, since a saint is in Atma, then Atma is spoiled by, tainted by the saint's, thoughts. If some distortions are in Atma, then Atma takes on those distortions. Is this true? No. Why not?
It's free from attributes.
Attributes. In other words, we did an inquiry, Satya Mithya. This wood is free of chair. The atom is free of wood. The quark is free of atom, chair, and wood and chair. So if the wood is free of chair, right, then the concept is thus free of the whole thing. And awareness is also free of the whole thing. In other words, when it comes to Satya Mithya, if you go down, the smaller you go, never inheres the attributes of that which is upwards. Okay? Therefore, everything is in Atma, but Atma remains completely free by the mere virtue of the Satya Mithya relationship. Sarvatra sama darshanaha, that one has the same vision everywhere. Same vision everywhere. Does this mean they see one big clump of consciousness everywhere? No. They see forms like anyone else. So on the form level, there is an understanding, but where is their unity? Where is their sameness? Where is their sameness? In Ishvara, which is the intelligence making every form what it is, because of which every form is what it is, and awareness, in other words, that intelligence which is making every form what it is, also resolves into awareness. So where's the difference that a wise person sees? Yeah, name and form, thoughts, everyone else sees. Where is the sameness? Ishvara and awareness. And how is this sameness? Is this some kind of an experiential sameness that they're having? No, it is cognitive understanding. Satya Mithya relationship, it is a cognitive understanding. And the more you understand this, the more it becomes reality, the more it's solidified. Not only does the yogi see differences, but also sameness. The yogi is able to appreciate letting go of resentment. Because when we have resentment, what is resentment? What is resentment in reference to? An object. In other words, I see that object as an isolated thing and I have resentment towards it. But when I see that object resolves into concepts, then towards what are you having resentment to? Exactly, right? In other words, as long as I see forms and I stop there at the difference, resentment becomes very easy. Bitterness becomes very natural. The moment I see cognitively deeper that it reduces into one substance because of which every form is what it is, then it helps you emotionally cope. And this is where yogis samatvam comes from, which means equanimous mind. They're not trying to act like everything's the same. It's just an understanding that everything reduces into Ishvara. Therefore, my resentment has merit to it, but there comes a point when it's crossing boundaries and it's becoming too much. And that is because I don't understand that the resentment to which I'm having towards is nothing but the very concepts that are making this body right now, the very intelligence which is helping me to move through this world. Therefore, a yogi is able to feel that, that tension, but at the same time, it never crosses this huge boundary because the yogi understands there's a sameness through and through this person or object. Think about this. The one who is bothering you, whoever that is, how do I see them? Form, face, right? And we stop there, face. And it's just like this one image, and then we add projections onto this face. And then we make it a real face, right? Like a face, right? This is because I see differences and I stop there. So you have to help your mind. Remember Brahma Vid, Brahmanishta? You have to keep on thinking, bringing this knowledge over and over and over and over and over and over again until I naturally, spontaneously start to see there's more than just a face here. It is intelligence manifesting as this face. And that alone makes your mind more equanimous, which is something that's constantly talked about throughout the features of a wise person. So they're not trying to have a wise mind, they just cognitively see deeper. Why? Because it was all happening at once? No, because they practice this over and over and over again. And the next verse reinforces this by stating that because you have brought Ishvara into your life, you don't have to do anything to keep on bringing Ishvara into your life. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mayi pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sachame na pranashyati. One who sees me everywhere. What is this me? Don't say consciousness because you can't see consciousness. Ishvara, the one who sees me, in this case, Krishna is speaking as Ishvara, and I am all that is here. For that one, I never come and go. Okay, why not? Why is it that the one who sees Ishvara as all that is here, for that one, I never come and go?
Because you're conscious that he is using everyone.
Yeah, where will you not find Ishvara? How can Ishvara come and go? Suppose you have a thought, I just forgot what Ishvara is. That thought is only possible because Ishvara is there. Therefore, it is no question of bringing Ishvara into one's life as an action. It's an understanding. I can only remember and forget because remember, forgetting is destructive power of Ishvara, Shiva. That means Ishvara has temporarily removed a thought from your brain. Who's doing that? The very Ishvara that I'm seeking. And that's not only true now, it's also going to be true tomorrow. It's also true yesterday. So this means the question of saying, where is Ishvara? It doesn't make sense anymore. And then next question, Arjun asks a question, the next verse, in verse 33, Arjuna uvacha yoyam yogastvaya proktaha samyena madhusudana etasyaham napashyami chanchalatvat sthitim sthiram. So after having heard all of this, right, all of this work has been now, given to us. After all of that, Arjun still asks a peculiar question. He says, with all of this maturity and growth that has taken place, and all of this work, I'm still not able to grasp the reality nor live it. Never mind grasp it, but I'm not able to live basic values, basic conduct of the world. That's an honest statement of the warrior. This is verse 33. He says, my mind is chanchala. In other words, distracted by past habitual thinking. And it's been habituated to think in such a way so long that even if you give me all of this, my mind still things like it always used to. What do I do about this, Krishna? And in verse 34, he continues and says, Chanchalam hi manah Krishna pramadhi balavad dridham tasyaham nigraham manye vayor iva sudushkaram. So Arjun says, my mind is like Vayu, air, constantly moving. Does air ever stay still? No. And he says, my mind is exactly like air. You cannot hold it at any one place. Is this your experience? Your mind is like air? Moves, blows, left and right. Why? Is it because something's wrong with your mind? No. That is how the mind is meant to be. That's just the nature of the mind. He says, how am I supposed to cultivate a mind with the right qualities and hold those right qualities in my presence when the mind is just constantly blowing new thoughts, new ideas, new whatever? And who's making this statement? Arjuna. And Arjuna is one of the smartest, most skilled warriors. Once upon a time, Drona, he was teaching the Kauravas and the Pandavas. And they say, what do you see on the tree? And I said, well, I see a leaf, I see a bird, I see the wing. And then Drona asks to Arjun, who had perfect concentration. He says, I only see the right eye and the pupil of the center of the right eye. Everything else, I don't see. That's the only thing I see. That's concentration, a warrior with huge amounts of concentration. And that one is saying, I can't master this. My mind is like wind. And what does Krishna answer? Well, let's see. Verse 35. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Asam Shayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Apyase Natu Kaunteya Vairagye Nachagrihyate. Okay, so the mind is difficult to master, no doubt, replies the Lord. But it is mastered by two practices. So Krishna agrees, first of all. This is good news. He's saying, that yes, your mind, it moves like the wind. And mastery isn't holding your mind still. Isn't making your mind thoughtless. Because the mind is meant to move. It's meant to make decisions. It's meant to feel and express what is going on in my body. I didn't come here to silence the instrument. I just came here to be sensitive to what the instrument is telling me. They're two different things altogether. Need to make decisions, the right decisions, and they need to get feedback and feel that feedback. All of that is mind. And then he says, well, then how do you master this mind? And he says, apyasena vairagyena. So what is apyasa? Practice number 1. Well, apyasa is practice. In other words, preparation. Moving from one perspective to a different perspective is practice. How long does it take you to move from one perspective to another perspective? Is that overnight? It's a long time. Constant practice, moving from my old perspective, thinking about him or her like this, to finding a new way to think about the situation like that. Not once, over and over and over and over and over again. This is the Lord's word. Practice, repetition. No matter of just having it once and it's all solved. It doesn't work like that in real life. For example, suppose one has this idea of looking at the news and, for too long, and then you just come to this place of the world is going through this situation, the world's going through this situation, and then you say, well, why do you feel like that? It's almost like the person becomes comfortable being uncomfortable. Most people are like this. They're so accustomed to being uncomfortable that it's actually comfortable being uncomfortable. But one has to acknowledge, I came here to just be comfortable with myself, not uncomfortable. Therefore, the person has to understand what is the cost, clear what is the cost of continuing to do this much. Am I making any real difference by being concerned what is going on in this country or that country? Be honest to yourself. Is your a little person, 1 out of a billion, ruminating over thoughts, oh, what's happening over there? Is that having any difference whatsoever to anyone? In reality, no. So we're not being cold towards others. It's just got to know, is this, and if I am ruminating, then at least can I do something? Can throw some donation money to the institutions that are asking for help? That much I can do. Otherwise, just going, oh, there's starving kids, there's wars going on. It's nobody helping. No, it's not helping anyone. It's not helping you. But if there is something that you can do, go and do it and don't complain about it. As I said in my webinar, I have this thing, I saw this institution which is helping orphaned children in India and sexually abused children. And once upon a time, I wanted to be involved. I wanted to be out there and make differences and see how my money is making a difference to these children. And then I realized, I don't want to go out there and waste my time. This is just traveling. You have to meet people. You have to speak the right language. And I thought, what will I do then? Because this is a desire to contribute. And I found an online institution that actually helps these kinds of children. Donate to that once a month. That gives me peace. Solve the problem. Never again thought about sexually abused children or the rape that's going on ever again since then, because it's not helping you at all. So if I can do something, go and do it. If I can't, then at least find peace within yourself, because it doesn't help anyone to keep on thinking about it. So again, redirecting my mind towards what I can change and moving away from what I can't change. It always goes back to that. That's called self-responsibility, being responsible. Practice number 2, Vairagya. Vairagya is usually interpreted as dispassion. And dispassion is okay. And that is the literal meaning. But dispassion, if you just leave it as dispassion, then it can imply like a cold, just like distance, not responding and letting things pass by. That's not what dispassion is. What vairagyam means is it comes from 2 words, vi, which always means into pieces, and vi, and raj. That's the root. V plus raj. So this means raj is to color in. And when you color something in, you are, right? That's called absence of dispassion. That means I'm putting a lot of value onto objects that they don't really have. Like a man puts so much value on a woman, and yet it's just the physical body with a certain skin and skeleton and blood and heart and all of these other things. And yet the man puts it's a huge, beautiful thing. So now the woman becomes more than she actually is. I've attributed too much value. I've colored her in with the most desirable thing in the universe. And then what happens? Well, because it's so desirable, go. Okay? We do the same thing with money. The money is okay, but then we color in money as it will become, right, the most amazing thing and it will make me happy. Most people are doing this. They think money will make them happy. So this means absence of dispassion. So dispassion means absence of coloring in. That means not coloring in things. What does this mean? Well, how do we color things in? Giving it a value which it doesn't intrinsically have. A watch, gold. Why would you spend $1 million on a watch? It's amazing, right? It just tells you the time like a McDonald's 50 cents watch. $1 million on the watch because the buyer has attributed so much value as a status symbol, and therefore I'm willing to pay that much. That's called absence of dispassion. I'm so passionate about watches and cars and wealth and women and this and luxuries because it all means a huge, big thing for me. It's all a huge deal. Therefore, absence of dispassion, things like assuming that you can tell someone's intentions. Coloring in. This is coloring in. She didn't call me. She didn't call me because da-da, 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 da-da. I'm coloring in through my own projection. Expecting a certain situation to arise how I thought of it to be, right? Expecting the class to be like this, my teammates to be like that. Huge expectations we put on a person, and now they're supposed to fulfill those expectations for whose sake? My sake? That's kind of unfair, isn't it? They're a person after all. They have their own ideas of what is the right way to live. How else do we color in? Idealize. They're the great person up there. Project all of this stuff onto the other person. Coloring in. Romanticizing situations. What does this mean? You create such an amazing image of that holiday, lying on the beach, the sun is going to be perfect and it's going to be just the right kind of heat. The waves are going to be crashing on the ocean and I'm going to sit down, relax. All my worries are going to disappear and I'll be watching into the distance and there will be no rubbish on the beach at all. And I won't have any sellers coming selling coconuts constantly, selling me all sorts of things. None of that's going to happen. So I've romanticized. I go there. It's totally opposite. You can, by the time you get to the beach, you've been sold 2 coconuts plus some antiques plus some, picture taking. And then you walk on that sand and it is too hot. You forgot your sandals now, so you have to run to your place. And then all of the sand has been washed away or the waves are coming too close. And everyone's, looking over on the beach. You can hardly find a place. I've romanticized. I've colored in the beach in my mind. And therefore, what is versus what I've created, they're not matching. And that produces a corresponding feeling in me. So dispassion is seeing things as they are, understanding that the world can present something totally different than I expected. Usually that's how it is. And just being mindful of where could I be coloring in right now in reference to my partner. What evidence do I have to know that her intentions are as I think they are? My partner has intentions right now, and I'm assuming those intentions are right. What evidence do you really have that's true? Usually zero. Usually zero. And every time we act out of those assumptions, then the response we get is one of conflict. That's when conflict comes. Therefore, coloring in is a huge thing in all aspects of our life with everyone. So this means rather than coloring in, I can at least hold back my opinion and ask. Okay? So this is something to be careful of, because it can really take one on a ride, and it becomes very hard to be happy, cheerful, by constantly coloring in things. Because your pratibhasika will always override vyavaharika. That's how it is. So vairagyam is not stay away from, it is only a guide. It was never about staying away from anything, just a general guide of looking things as they are, seeing their real value. And then Arjuna in the next verse asks another question. Verse 37, Arjuna uvacha ayate shraddhayo petaha yoga chalita manasaha aprapya yoga samsiddhim kam gatim krishna gacchati. So what Arjuna is essentially asking here is that what if I practice apyasa and vairagyam? So we've just given you two, like repetition. I constantly bring this into my life over and over and over again. Not only this, but self-knowledge also. And on top of that, I do not color things in. I have relative objectivity. And I do all of this with all sincerity. And I still don't get the reality. Moksha doesn't take place. What happens then? Krishna, who better than you can answer this? Why does Arjuna say, who better than Krishna can answer this? Because Krishna has access to details. Krishna is the Lord incarnate, so he has access to details, while a Jivan Mukta doesn't have access to details. So Krishna can tell Arjun what happens after death to the Jiva for the one who has practiced on and on and on again. So Arjun wants to know, has my effort gone to waste? Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Partha Naiveha Namutra Vinashastasya Vidyate Nahi Kalyana Krit Kashchid Durgatim Tata Gacchati. Just to come to the pursuit of understanding that worldly pleasures can only give me so much, but they can't give me what I'm really seeking. Just to come to that stage of a mumukshu, and then a mumukshu to come to the stage of a jinyatsu, that means now I'm searching knowledge, that is a huge step in this world. Huge step. 99% are basically at the level of artha and kama, security and pleasures, and doing the right thing. But through that, to discover that there is much more than just those three, thus you become a mumukshu, the first stages of a spiritual seeker, that takes lifetimes. Lifetimes upon lifetimes. So that is a huge step in itself. And then from that to go to jinyatsu, that means the one who now sees that knowledge is required in my devotion, in my understanding, that is even a greater accomplishment. That means you can remain a mumukshu your entire life, going from one thing to another, hopping like a kangaroo from one thing to the other. And you can go like this for lifetimes. And then to come and settle and say, actually, there is something in me that wants to know deeper. I want to know. To have that attitude of sitting down and starting to study, that is also lifetimes. And as the person comes to this stage, as it takes lifetimes, you become more decent. You become, less complex, less complexities, like easier to relate to the person because they went through all of this work. So the journey eventually comes to a place and you say, I want to discover all of this. But then you can also make a mistake and say, well, I want to discover this right now. Really? You can't. You can't discover this right now. Because if we could, it would have happened yesterday. Because who wants to suffer one more day? Who wants to carry a dissatisfied self for one more day? Nobody. So this means there's a certain grace that I have to also earn. And that grace is earned through my continued studies, continued involvement in this work. To say that I want to get it in this lifetime, think about it. It's just who's saying that? I want to get it in this lifetime. Who's saying that? A small I. Just to think like that, you're reinforcing the very thing you're trying to get rid of. Not rid of, but understand that you're much bigger of. Therefore, there's no question of going, I want to get it in this lifetime. This lifetime is it. Because that actually doesn't help you. Okay? So here in this verse, all of the maturity that took lifetimes carries forward. Carries forward in the form of a samskara. And samskara, we said, are impressions from past lives that come into your this life, and you become more evolved, more discerning, more more compatible when this knowledge finally comes to your life. And again, next verse now states what specifically happens to the person who didn't get it in this lifetime. What specifically happens? Verse 41, Prapya punya kritam lokan ushitva shashvatih samaha shuchi nam shri matam gehe yoga brashto bhijayate. So what specifically happens if you have done all of the work with all sincerity for 30, 40, 50 years and you die and you didn't get it? Well, possibility one is you don't necessarily get born on earth, but you can also go to a higher loka and become one of those devas and just have a really good time, because the person has done so much work and even gone through a lot of pain on earth. Then what happens after death? You actually ascend, and you say it was all worth it. It was all worth it, because the bliss that you get in heaven is incomparable to anything you can get on earth. And you say, wow, all of that was worth it. And after this, I will come back to earth and I will simply continue my journey with the same samskaras of the knowledge that I spent all of those years. So nothing got lost. All of that hard work has given you a large break, a very long break in bliss. And then you come back and you get born. Second option, Shuchi Nam Shrimatam Gehe. You get born on earth in a clean home. And what does this mean? Parents with values, with culture, discerning, right? They're able to show you there's some wisdom. There's an air of wisdom in your family. And this air of wisdom dramatically helps the child with a healthy self-esteem. Because the way our school systems are made is that if you're not in the top 3, you're a failure. It's like only if you're in the top 3 of the class, only then that's the best one. But the rest of us, we develop some complexes. So what initially starts as external feedback, through adulthood, it becomes internalized. That's just how the school systems are made. But having been born in a healthy family, your parents are teaching you how to be, a confident, healthy human being. So they're taking care of you, and they're not letting all of that failure in school come to you. And this helps you because they let you not develop those scars. You don't develop those scars of being a loser, a worthless, a nobody. All of this, your family takes care of you. And you say to yourself, my God, I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky. And you have no idea why you're so lucky. Because samskaras got carried over, because you did the hard work in the previous life. And it was not easy in the previous life. But now, in the next life, you are having a great time. And other kids are jealous of you, envious. Oh, they got such good parents. I wish I had parents like that. I wish I had a mind like that. I wish I had a composure like that. And they think, you're just lucky. But there's much more than meets the eye. It's a carryover from previously, from past life. And then again, 3 possibilities in verse 42 I want to read. So 3 possibilities. Your parents are either mumukshus, or they're jidnyasus, or they're jnanis. If it's the latter, if it's the last one, that's a benefit. If it's the first one, that's also a benefit. They're all benefits. Because your parents are discerning and they're working hard and they're inculcating the right values in you. Then what? Verse 43 and 44. Purvabhyasena te naiva hriyate hyavasho pisaha jijna surapi yogasya shabda brahmati vartate. Having been born in the right family or a family that is discerning, what happens? At some point, you meet somebody that speaks your language, that speaks the language of philosophy, that speaks the language of spirituality, and you're innocently connecting to them. You don't know why, you're just compatible for the most unusual reasons. It just sounds familiar, like, yeah, I'm gonna stay here. I'm gonna stay here. Give me more. And you can't explain it, but it's there. But if somebody else comes there, they don't have the same experience. This is the most boring stuff. I want to walk out there. Give me something to do. But you innocently stay there, and you can't explain why. And you're comfortable getting into it deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. There's something about you that just wants to explore deeper. Not only that, but you keep on putting effort over and over and over again. And you see, my God, I've got 10,000 other things that are way better than this. And here I am putting all of my time, energy, and focus into this. Why? Is something wrong with me? No. That's how the journey worked out. You're innocently attracted to those things which you have started lifetimes ago. And in this life, it's all now coming through. And you think you're the weird one. And others, no, they're normal. And yet, every jiva has to go through the same process, get born in a relatively compatible family that somehow, by their togetherness, will in some way get you out into the world and make you have to think for yourself. And that thinking will bring you to a person will say something, it sounds familiar, and then you will slowly find a teacher, and you go, wow, why am I here and somebody else is not? I don't get it. Because the vast network is such that it has led you here. Owing to your effort. So who is this person? I don't know, Mr. John, Mr. Smith, Mr. Raj, Mr. Devaki, Miss Radhika, I don't know. But there was a doer in a previous life that did the right things, and this doer is now enjoying, reaping the rewards of the doer. The same jiva, different bodies. Just put on a different suit, and you're like, I can't explain my position, but you are very much here for a reason. And what happens then? Well, you go through the methodology, and moksha takes place. You understand finally who you are. In other words, all of your past results, karma palas, removed. In one shot, they all go away. I am freed from all of the things that this person has been doing for eons, trying to make themselves happy. All of it at once is no longer mine, disowned in 1 second. No more claimer, and upon death, you continue as awareness. You continue as yourself. I am finally home. I've been looking for this place since beginningless time, and I finally found what I was looking for. No more body, no more this, no more that. I now rest in my eternal self forever. It was worth it. All of the struggles, all of the traveling, all of the this, all of the that, it was all worthwhile. I now rest in my eternal self forever. I'm home. Therefore, Param Gatim, the highest goal, has been finally gotten. You did it. You finished the journey. All of this was just to come to that place of my eternity and remain that as myself. And thus, for this reason, Krishna praises the yogi. In verse 46, he says, tapasvibhyo dhiko yogi, jnanibhyo pimato dhikaha, karmibhyascha dhiko yogi, tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. He says, yogi, the one who has taken all of this effort to understand who he or she is, they are superior to those who turn to dharma as the end of life, because those miss out on the presence of Ishvara. If you're just a good person, wonderful. But I still miss out on the presence of Ishvara. They are better or superior, not better, the word is superior to scholars. Who are scholars? Scholars are highly educated. They are ones who are able to quote left and right, very inspiring and educational people. And you think, wow, this is an amazing person. This is, this is a liberated person. Not necessarily. They just have the right kind of mind to be able to quote left and right, and you're just blown away. It's like a computer, truly like a computer. Here, yogi is superior to a scholar. I'm not saying now go and judge no, please no. This is just information. Is better than a meditator. Why? Because meditator always does action, but every action is limited, thus remains as a limited being. So yogi is better than those who turn to dharma, those who are scholars, very intelligent, very discerning, very inspiring, and meditators. And finally, verse 47, how to bring Ishvara into your life. Yoginam api sarvesham madgate nantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo mataha. Someone read, please. Therefore, the verse says, yes, an integral part of growth is all of this. Yes. But all of this can also inflate my ego, right? Inflate my I sense. You have to also start bringing Ishvara into your life. Then it becomes a full, complete system. That means, right, I need you for my success. Ishvara is here making this all possible. And how to bring Ishvara into my life? As we said, acknowledging my helplessness. You only know so much. And I need Ishvara's help. Therefore, converting helplessness into something that you can help yourself with through prayer. Because then you're making variables unknown into your favor. This is the purpose of prayer. To convert unknown variables, future unknown, unpleasant variables, into my favor so they're advantageous for me. And recognizing that the whole thing is just intelligence right now. The whole thing is intelligence reshuffling itself constantly right now, constantly reshuffling itself to appear as all of this. All you're seeing, experiencing now is intelligence, which has no reality outside of a conscious being. It's one conscious being in whom all of this is now happening. There's no out there. This is it. And the truth of intelligence is I am, known to you right now. And finally, why is meditation important? We said because it lets you continue developing your relationship with Ishvara, and it lets you bring up all of that stuff that's unresolved out. The moment it's brought out, that much is enough. It lets you release it. So meditation, for this reason, is something that we can bring into our lives and continue developing, deepening our relationship with the only refuge, with the only savior that you've always ever had, which is Ishvara. And this much concludes chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga of Bhagavad Gita. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.